Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. This is Stacy. This is going to be a two-part video, and it's going to be super useful if you ever get angry and regret it. The first video, this one is going to dive into the psychology of it and explain how it works and how to go about identifying what it is that the trigger is. And then the second one will drop into how to actually work on that and fix it. But watch this one first if you're doing these. Don't skip forward to the other one because this is really important foundation to help you understand what this thing's all about. The author Krista Tippett wrote in Becoming Wise, her book. She said that anger is often what pain looks like when it shows itself in public. Pain is often what, or anger is often what pain looks like when it shows itself in public. I like this quote because it gets to the heart of this and it gets to the psychology of it too. There's primary emotions and secondary emotions. Primary emotions tend to be the ones that are more vulnerable, that make us feel vulnerable, that are kind of softer emotions. And then the secondary emotion, the big one, is anger. And there's other subsets of that, like frustration and annoyance, things like that. But anger is super secondary, right? It can be a primary emotion, but that's a whole other thing. In the case of this, when you can identify where your anger is coming from, you can reprogram it. Over a period of time, you can just identify it really quickly and just brush it away instead of letting anger run your day or run your moments the way that sometimes it can. So looking at primary emotions are things like shame, fear, guilt, sadness, love and affection. Affection isn't technically an emotion, but it's sort of that subtle side of love where, say, you feel affection for somebody or love for someone, and you you go to express it and they don't express it back. You can go to anger because those are softer emotions. So how do you feel strong again? Well, you find a strong foundation to stand on, and oftentimes that's anger. Same thing with all these other things too, and really it can come from any kind of anger can come from anything that leaves you feeling vulnerable. I'll give you an example from my experience here last week. I was driving to work, and there's a guy behind me. I'm in the fast lane. Guy, girl, I don't know. Well, there's a car behind me. I'm in the fast lane, and they're coming up fast, so I scoot over, and the car comes up kind of to my rear bumper, but doesn't pass me. And it goes on like that for half a mile or so. And I got so annoyed. And I was like, what the hell's your problem, man? Like I'm saying this out loud in my car. And then I immediately went, what's that about? So I actually said to myself out loud in the car, where did that come from, Stacy? Because I've done this enough that I know that like when I do something that's out of character for me now, I can question myself and I can find what the root of it is. And I knew anger is never primary emotion, right? It's the secondary emotion. It's the emotion we go to. So this is how it works. When you feel a sense of vulnerability, vulnerability is a place we don't like to be. It's as a survival tool, we don't like to be there. It goes back to evolution, like fight or flight, right? In that case, I wasn't feeling vulnerable for what the person was doing. But in that particular case, I've had this pinched nerve in my neck from an old injury that's radiating pain down my arm this week. It's starting to bug me. And it's not terrible pain, but it's enough that it's very distracting. That was enough to make my personality change enough that this vulnerability I'm feeling, this discomfort, made me verbally out loud do something I normally wouldn't do, which is yell at a stranger in a car next to me. That's how it works. Now, this more often than not is more an emotional thing than it is a physical thing. This physical thing is tied to an emotional thing because of the story I'm telling myself about how my body is hurting and woe is me stuff, right? But recognizing it and asking yourself, just stopping in that moment when you go to anger and asking yourself, where did that come from? Where did that come from? A simple question, where did that come from? You can stop and ask yourself where it came from. And it never starts in anger. It starts in one of those vulnerable emotions. Think of an instance, maybe on social media, or if you're in traffic, or maybe coworker or a family member, and you get triggered and you go right to anger. You get snappy with them or something. If you stop in that moment, pull yourself out of that situation, give yourself a timeout, and by yourself say, where did that come from? You can identify what emotion it was that they clicked on, right? And it's usually one of those soft ones. It's sadness, fear, shame, guilt, love, affection. And when you identify those things, you can start to feel empathy for yourself and work with yourself. And it allows you to be in this space where you develop a higher level of self-awareness. And just by doing this again and again and again, I mean, try it for a week, you'll see. Try it for a month, you'll create a habit. And after a year, you'll be a completely transformed human being where you'll immediately use this tool without even thinking. Like any tool that we use it enough, it becomes a regular thing for us. But we have to get in the habit of doing it. So you become a better version of yourself when you do this. You'll have less anxiety, you'll have less stress, you'll have more joy. Because when you remove stress and anxiety, the reduction in those things leaves you more open to joy. You're taking away these things that don't need to be there: anxiety, stress, anger. And when those are off the plate, there's more room on that plate for joy. And you're much more wide open to let it in, because now you've worked through and identified what those things are that are standing in the way of it. Are you following me on this? If you have any questions, leave them in the chat below. There's going to be a second video, like I said, that follows up, that talks more about the empathy side of this. And that's going to be useful as a secondary tool. And explain also how empathy plays into this tool and expands it quite a bit, in fact. Not just in use with this tool, but in your personal and spiritual growth altogether. It's also a fantastic tool. So if you want to hear about that, follow me up on the next video, which I'll drop shortly after this one. If it's not up yet, wait, it'll be there soon. Thanks for being here. Please leave comments in the comment box below. Questions as well. I try to check them at least once a week, and if I have a question, I'll try to do my best to answer it for you, okay? Thanks, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.